Hi guys, and welcome back to the Confidence Show. I'm very excited about today's guest. We have the wonderful Tamsin Crimmens. Tamsin is a somatic coach working with quietly revolutionary female entrepreneurs, coaches, healers, and world changers who want to step into their own version of embodied leadership. She's obsessed with helping best kept secrets who'd love to be more industry famous, discover the medicine in their message, feel confident sharing it, and getting paid for being themselves. As a former journalist with bylines in Elle, Stylist, Grazia, The Guardian, and the Sunday Times Style, she's written about it all and interviewed everyone from Caitlin Moran to Stella McCartney. Tamsin brings a journalistic instinct for a high impact message together with somatic healing work so her clients can build pleasure-based businesses that disrupt the status quo. She's also 18 months sober, which has changed everything for her. Welcome, Tamsin. Oh my God, what an intro.
Thank you. I'm actually longer than that sober now. I'm 2 years, 8 months.
Oh my goodness gracious me. That's huge.
It's life-changing. I so love that you want to talk about that. Like, it's one
Yes.
of my favorite topics.
I do. We'll circle back to that towards the end because there's so
Okay.
much that we've got to cover, but it is something I really want to talk to you about purely because I keep getting these nudges to go sober and I'm like, but I love alcohol too much. I don't want to.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
it's going to be very, very interesting to discuss that with you. So I'm so happy that you are here with us today. Let's start by talking a little bit about your journey in business. So, as we just heard, you were previously a journalist for many well-known publications. What made you want to move from journalism into coaching?
Interesting question, because my life was a bit of a mess.
Oh, wow.
Back in the days of drinking champagne, red carpets, doing the London thing, dating around. Like, it was like Sex in the City, or so I thought. But when things look great on the outside, but they're not so great on the inside. I was really struggling with my sexuality. I was struggling with who I was, what I wanted, which I think is super common for people in there. I was in my late 20s and I had a huge life shift when, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Saturn return, which is around 28 and a half years old. I think many people will probably be familiar with that point in life being like, what's happening? Who am I? And, there's a lot of pressure, especially for women at that age of, like, we got a career together, got somebody to marry, like buy a house, do all of the things. And so what I did was just sort of pack up all my stuff and run off to India. Probably inspired by Eat, Pray, Love, I'm just going to be honest. And I was meant to be there for a couple of months, ended up being there for a year, did a lot of healing work, didn't even know what the hell healing was. It's like, I don't get it at all. And once I'd sort of dipped my toe into being in my body through lots of yoga practice, I was like, okay, there's a lot going on here. What are all these messages? What's happening? I was very up in my head, very confused a lot of the time. And really from there, everything has developed. There's never been a plan. There's never been I'm going to become a coach at all. It's been just going deeper and deeper, like, doing womb healing work. I did that for many years, which was, what I needed and what I was sharing with other women as well. I was doing a lot of hosting women's circles, and just bit by bit, more and more and more was unfolded at a pace that suited me, it turns out. If you'd said to me, trauma, somatic coaching, business 5 years ago, I would have been like, no, what are you even talking about? So it's just been a very organic process that's kind of found me here, where I'm like, okay, the body, I get it. This all makes sense. And now I'm in a stage of like really deepening into my skills in somatic work. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. It's so interesting because obviously when like growing up, Sex and the City was like my thing. And it is always whenever I'm going through a breakup or a hard time, it's the box that comes out and I'm like, okay, this is what I want. And you have this image of it being such a glamorous, exciting lifestyle, like living that London life. But as you said, it's so different on the outside, and how you feel on the inside is ultimately the most important, because you can be living this life that everyone sees as incredible, but if you don't feel good in yourself, like, what's even the point? Like, why live your life just to look good to other people? So the whole shift that you did and spending all that time in India, what I know you said that you were inspired by Eat, Pray, Love, but what made you choose India to go to? Was it just because it was in Eat, Pray, Love, or was it because you felt a calling to? How did that kind of journey come about?
I have no idea. I really, really have no idea why I went there. Yeah, maybe I was called there. I have no idea. I think that the spiritual path seemed to offer something, some kind of answer to the messiness that I felt inside. You know, I wanted peace. I wanted some kind of something to hang on to, you know, like, is it God? Is it like, I just didn't, I had no idea, because it felt like life was so chaotic. There was nothing to grip onto. There was never anything that felt steady. And so I was always searching. I was a real seeker, always looking for new things. And it's really interesting. Now I'm not. I just love my life, and I'm like, yeah, more of this, please. This is great. But back then, it's kind of weird to kind of even go back there in my mind and think about that time, which lasted for many, many years. It's not like it was just like a flash in the pan and then everything was cool. It was like, 10, 15 years of chaos, and now things have stabilized, just to be honest. So yeah, I think it was some kind of calling to find something in spirituality or God or whatever you want to call it that could offer me some kind of peace. And it was the stepping stone that helped me find the things that truly worked, which for me is trauma healing, somatic work. But as I say, I needed those stepping stones, to find myself there. So I'm very grateful for that time in my life, as wild as it was.
Absolutely. And I think when you've been through that kind of journey yourself, and you've experienced all these different modalities, and as you said, like the womb healing, you've done the yoga, you've done the trauma healing, now you can help facilitate that in other people. You can help, even if you can't be the one that necessarily does I don't know if you're trained in yoga or whatever, you can't be the one that teaches the yoga, but you can help people see, like, okay, actually, if you did the yoga, this is what you could maybe uncover, or this is a new part of the you that you could heal using this tool. Where you've lived that, you can help other people so much more. Can you tell us a little bit about what a somatic coach does, and what the word somatic actually means? Because it's not something that I'm like overly familiar with, and I don't know whether our listeners will know either.
Yeah. Somatic, it's from the word soma, the Greek word soma, which means body. So I think, you could ask 100 people and have slightly different definitions of somatic work. But for me, it's befriending the body and actually listening to what our systems have to say on a subtle level, and being guided by that wisdom. Because so many of us, we live in a culture that's very, very dominated by the thinking mind, the rational mind. There's not so much heart wisdom, womb wisdom, body wisdom. It's changing now. And there's been so much research done into trauma, and I'm sure many people would have heard the phrase, the body keeps the score, and this idea that the body holds on to an overwhelm of energy, basically, and until we release it through the body, it can show up when we get triggered, for example. And the work that I do is mainly with entrepreneurs, and as I'm sure you know, the entrepreneurial path is not a smooth one.
No.
There are many things that can come along that I think this is why we subconsciously perhaps choose this path, because we maybe suspect that it's going to show us where we need to look.
Yeah.
But there will be things that come along that can create huge amounts of activation in our bodies, and so much of the wisdom and the teachings have been that we mindset it away. We change our thinking, and then we change how we feel. And actually, my approach, which is learned from incredible scientists in this field, understands that most of the communication is actually coming, 80% of what's happening is coming from the body up to the brain. So 20% comes from brain to body. So when we work somatically and we listen to all those little messages that the body has, from clenching in the jaw or the stomach to a fluttering heart to sweating to whatever you could imagine, wanting to run, you know, when we can tune in and listen to that, which can be super scary to do, because if, like me, your body felt like a very, very unsafe place to be and that you wanted to escape it, which I used to do with everything that I could get my hands on, sex, drugs, alcohol, like drama, whatever, coming into the body, it just has to happen slowly and gently. But when we can build that relationship and listen and understand to what's going on underneath, then our thoughts change, our behaviors change. For me, it's just a much more effective way of actually being able to move towards the things that we want and hold the things we want without parts of us going, whoa, like I can't handle that. That feels really unsafe. So a lot of it is about creating safety in the body so that we can create the things we want to create.
That's so beautiful. And what would you say is kind of the first like baby step people could take to kind of move into looking at how they can befriend their body in that way so that they can clear some of this stagnant energy that's stuck?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And I think we're all starting from such different places. For me, it started on the yoga mat, you know, having that experience of noticing my shoulders, noticing my body full stop. Like I was not connected at all. I did not know what was going on in my body. I didn't have an awareness of when I was hungry, when I was full, what I enjoyed, what I didn't enjoy. I didn't know like who I wanted to spend time with, who I didn't. I just wasn't listening to how I felt at all. And what will often happen is the body will start to scream at us later until we listen. So finding practices, maybe it's exercising, maybe it's walking in nature, maybe it's yoga, maybe, like for me, for a long time, it was taking really indulgent baths. That was the place that I could really feel my body. But it could be so many different things. There's really no right or wrong. But what I really want to encourage is just dipping in a tiny bit. If you can feel your feet on the ground right now, then you're embodied, you're present. Isn't that incredible? If you can feel your fingertips rubbing against each other, wow. Like, what does that feel like? What's the sensation? What's the temperature? And it can be for literally a couple of seconds. You know, it doesn't have to be that we go and do an hour-long yoga class or great big workout or whatever it might be. Like, it could actually just be, can I feel my breath? Can I take one breath and feel what that feels like? And then we build from there.
That's so lovely. And it's so simple, isn't it? It's not something that's like unavailable to everyone. It's not something that's been like put on a pedestal where you've got to be a certain type of person to be able to do this work, or you've got to be able to invest in this sort of work. Like, it is, as you say, so simple as just like feeling your fingertips together or putting your feet in the ground. And I suppose the more that you start to consciously do that, the more that it naturally starts to happen, and the more that you just recognize the way that your body feels without you having to sit there and think, oh, my body feels like this today.
Yeah, it's definitely a practice, 100% a practice. And for many of us, we need practitioners and people to hold us in that exploration. I know I certainly have. Yes, we can do a little bit of this work ourselves, but as I say, for many of us, coming into the body, listening to the body is totally foreign and alien. And actually, if it feels too much, having the space held by somebody else is, what a gift. It's so incredible. Like I say, like I started in the yoga room. I didn't know what was happening. Now I have a much greater understanding and have people holding me regularly to be able to tune in. But yeah, goodness gracious, this has been years and years and years in the making. But you're right, it's available to absolutely everyone. And I would just say, take it take it slow and start to build up an understanding of even something, depending on where you're starting from, am I actually hungry? Do I need some water right now? Do I need rest? These are messages that our culture overrides on the regular. Women especially, we are not taught to listen to our appetite. We're taught to count calories and watch what we're eating, not feel it. We are taught to push through tiredness instead of rest when we need it. So it may seem really obvious, but actually, how many of us are truly listening? In this culture, it's quite challenging.
Absolutely. And then when you add in entrepreneurship on top of that, when you're like, well, I'll just send this email, or I've got to get this done, or oh, I've only worked for 5 hours today, like I need to do some more. When actually your body's like, I need to nap. And this is why I've started to give myself lots of space during the day and say, like, if I want to have a 2-hour nap in the afternoon, I mean, I don't typically, but there are days if I need a 2-hour nap, I'm going to have it, because I know pushing through, I'm not going to achieve anything in that time. I'm just going to stare at a screen. But society will say, well, yeah, but you're being productive because you're on the laptop. Well, no, actually, I'm being productive by having a rest and like recharging my batteries and looking after myself first.
100%. Yeah. And the magic that unfolds when we are in that listening relationship, the 2-hour nap could lead to the light bulb solution that you need for that problem that you're facing, or the idea for your next program, or be able to help you center so that you can go and have a challenging conversation with somebody. It's hugely valuable in and of itself, just to take care of your physical and emotional health. But what I find time and time again is the more my clients are tuning in, the more they're listening, the more embodied they become, the more strategy, marketing, sales, like it all just becomes so much easier, because there's such a deep sense of trust within our own beings, rather than constantly looking outside for answers. We know the answers, we really truly do, but there's a hell of a lot of noise out there, and it's very difficult to actually tune that out and come back to ourselves. But the more we give our body the space to communicate with us, the more it's going to.
Yeah, absolutely. And then things will just change so much. Like, just even, I know myself, like when I just have that trust in myself, everything just feels easy. Like I can write a social media post in seconds, and whether or not it's the right post, it will feel good to me. And then it doesn't matter whether it's the right post, because I feel good putting it out there. And then you have that like confidence to show up and to be visible and to have conversations, and you've not got those voices in your head going, oh, what's this person going to think, and what's that person going to think? And yeah, it's so different.
You've hit the nail on the head, because having trust, to me, it is the most essential ingredient to success as an entrepreneur. Like, you cannot really get anywhere if you don't trust yourself. The moves that you have to make to actually get where you want to get, putting yourself out there, sharing your message, putting your offers, receiving sales, like these things are not small. Like, people talk about them like they're just no big deal, but the work I do is supporting people to actually have the capacity to make those moves. And that is, I just really want to normalize that if any of those things feel challenging, like, there's nothing wrong with you. It's absolutely nothing wrong with you. Your body is communicating that something isn't quite right. And when we are in a space of presence and regulation within ourselves, that's when we can feel the trust, and our thoughts are supportive, and we can take the actions that we need to take, and trust ourselves to be able to hold ourselves no matter what happens, whether we hear crickets, whether we make more money than we've ever made before, whatever it might be. So I love that you brought up that word, because I feel like people have asked me so many times, but how do I trust myself? Like, well, imagine just building up trust with your own system, that you give it what it needs. Like, simple as that.
So simple. I think we make it this difficult thing, or this thing that's going to take loads of effort, or this thing that we I don't know, like you say, so many people ask, how do I trust myself? And I've asked that question as well, like, how do I trust myself? It's like, we want someone to give us the answers. We want somebody to tell us, okay, well, you can trust yourself by getting up at this time each day, by doing this each day, by like going through this checklist. But it is just as simple as listening to yourself and honoring your needs, honoring what your body is telling you it wants.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It is as simple as that. And how many times have we tried to build trust with ourselves by giving ourselves hugely unrealistic targets?
Yes.
I know you've talked before about wanting to be in like the 5 a.m. club, you know, like I'll only be successful if I get up really early and I have achieved this. You know, it's like rewiring ourselves and reprogramming ourselves at the body-based level of actually, I'm safe to share my voice. I'm safe to rest when I need rest. I'm safe to sell, you know, all of these pieces. All that stuff, you know, like must do this, all falls out. You know, we just don't need it.
No, absolutely not. What can you tell us a little bit about what a regulated nervous system looks like and what an unregulated nervous system looks like, and how you can maybe like one thing that you can do to kind of re-regulate your nervous system if it's not quite where it should be?
Yeah, okay, this is such a good question. And as somebody who spent the majority of my life with a dysregulated nervous system, if somebody had tried to explain to me what these states were then, it would have been like speaking a foreign language, I think. So really the best way to understand regulation and dysregulation is a regulated nervous system is one that is present in the here and now, and it's not actively self-protected. So we're able to connect with one another, we're able to attune to one another. We are not in a state of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And those states are our self-protective states. So many of us are very familiar with fight or flight. We know that we might start speaking really, really quickly. Our hands might clench together. We, you know, our faces get wider. There's more alertness there. Our legs feel like they want to run. We start fights with our loved ones. And we don't necessarily know why we're behaving in that way. Like a lot of us are running on that sympathetic fight flight energy in our businesses. And when it's essentially, we go into that, if you think of animals, they are very, very, very good at, they're hanging out on the savannah, they're just chilling, they're relaxing, they're playing, they're having such a great time, but they can go into fight flight energy super quick when they hear a sound. They're so aware of their environment. But what's so incredible about them is they can cultivate all of that energy to run from a threat, but then after the threat has gone, they return to, they shake it off a lot of the time, and they return to a state of regulation where they're then eating or playing or sleeping, that kind of thing. But when humans, unfortunately, what often happens is we go into those self-protective states like fight, flight, and we get stuck there. We find it difficult to come back into a state of regulation. And regulation is where all the good stuff of life is. It's our creativity, our pleasure, problem solving, connection. Like, it's beautiful. This is where we want to be spending the majority of our time. Not all of our time, because we want to be able to jump into fight flight when we need to, when there is a genuine threat. But for a lot of us, we go into a fight flight when we're considering posting on Instagram. You know, we've got we're vigilant to threat. So that's when we want to be able to soothe our nervous systems to come back into the state of regulation. So that's fight, flight, sympathetic. But if in the animal kingdom, if an animal can't escape or fight a threat, what they'll do is they'll go into shutdown. So they'll play dead. So that you actually, you know, they're actually numbing their systems so that it doesn't feel as painful to be eaten, or the threat might then leave. So we have exactly the same functions, and this part of the nervous system, this is where there's apathy, numbness, and you know, maybe we can't get out of bed and everything is just really hard. And I spent a lot of time in that state of my nervous system. And again, what we really want to be able to do, that's also that parasympathetic nervous system is also where rest is. So we want to be able to dip in and out of these dysregulated states or into blended states of play or deep rest. But we don't want to be getting a healthy nervous system is one that can move in between those states, easily. But for so many of us, we get stuck in those states, and we can't talk ourselves out of that. I'm sure I don't know if you've ever had the experience of trying to talk yourself out of a panic attack.
Yeah, it just does not work.
Or feeling really, really down. It doesn't work. It's because it's the nervous system, it's our body. And what it needs is to be shown we're here, it's the here and now, the past is gone. We're in the present moment and we're safe. And we do that by using different somatic tools, which can be so simple. Could be as simple as tapping on different points around our head. I mean, sometimes I'll just find myself tapping my forehead, for example, or it could be certain breath work. I'm in a very, very, very activated state, in a fight or flight state, where there's a bit of anxiety. I love a long exhale. Exhales that are longer than your inhale help to calm the nervous system. Equally, if you're in that shutdown state, we want to gently, like a bear coming out of hibernation, we just want to really gently, might be using music to just, not like putting on some great big pop song or something, just something gentle, and then allowing yourself to slowly start to, can you move a little bit and start to show your system, okay, yeah, it's safe for me to come out of these protected states, because that's all they are. It may feel frustrating, and I spent many years working on this and have felt so frustrated. Why? I am safe now. Why is my system behaving like I'm about to die? Like, this is crazy. Even something as simple as I've been with my partner now 2.5 years, and that felt overwhelmingly threatening to my system, to have a loving partner come into my life. It was so unfamiliar. I had to really tolerate the good things coming in, because they felt so threatening to my system. I know that can sound really odd. It's like, well, of course we just want good things to come into our lives. It's like, it's safe, it's fine, and we try and tell ourselves, but this person's nice. Like, why am I so activated? And that's because our bodies are storing trapped energy, if you like, and anything that reminds them of danger in the past, and it could even be ancestral, it's going to come into that self-protected state. So we have those 3 different states, and then a bunch of different blended states, but we really want to be learning to widen our capacity to spend as much time as possible in that lovely present. It's called the ventral vagal complex. We want to be spending as much time as possible there.
Yes, it's a nice place to be, and lovely calm place to be.
It can be calm, and it can be playful, and it can be, it's having a regulated nervous system doesn't mean being calm all the time. And I think that's sometimes what confuses people.
I think that's
it's
probably
actually a flexible nervous system.
I think that's kind of what I would probably assume it more to be, as you say, like I didn't realize it didn't have to be calm all the time. That's kind of how when I'm like calm and at peace, I'm like, oh well, I'm regulated. But then there are times where I'm like having fun, or I'm high energy, or I feel really good, and it's not in an anxious or overactive or like panicked way, but I don't necessarily recognize that as, oh, I'm safe in my body at the moment.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And would you say in those
before? Sorry.
Yeah. And in those moments, are you connected and present, or is there a part that feels like self-protection is needed?
No, I think for the most part, when I'm feeling really good in those moments, then I am present. Like when I'm having good conversations with people, when I'm out and I'm not, because there'll be times where I'm out and I'm having conversations with people, but there'll be that anxious voice in my head that's like, I'll have social anxiety, so it's almost like I'm having conversations but my brain isn't in the conversation, my brain is like elsewhere, and I'm just trying to like not come across as anxious or not come across as rude, or I'm like, what am I going to say next? Like, what's my next sentence going to be, so that people know that I'm listening, kind of thing. But, and I know
Yeah.
that's not the same, but there are times where I do have like good conversations where I feel really playful or joyful and my energy is really high, but my body's not calm, but it's not not a negative feeling in the body.
Yeah, it's that feeling safe, feeling safe to let go and have fun, feeling safe to play, feeling safe to be excited. It's not all kind of just on our meditation cushion feeling all calm at all. It's being able to move through our lives with in a sense of state of presence. And what's so wonderful about that is that's when we can really truly become intimate with ourselves, with other people. We have this incredible creativity and decision making. We're not making our decisions or functioning in our relationships from a place of survival, because that's what those dysregulated states essentially are, is we're in our survival response. And a lot of people, especially in the early days of business, are running everything through survival. And there's only so long we can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Going in a slightly different direction, one of the things that I really admire about you is the way that you've kind of chosen not to subscribe to this whole being on social media everyday narrative that we get told that we need to do all the time. I see your emails every now and then, but I wouldn't say that you are like consistent in the way that we are expected to be consistent, in that send a letter, like send an email to your list every week, be on social media every day, that kind of stuff. Yeah, you've still got your successful business, you're able to receive new clients, regular income, all the things that we aim to achieve in our businesses. Can you talk a little bit about how you choose to be visible in your business and some of the challenges that can come from having to be visible as a business owner?
Yeah, it's a really common complaint or question, this idea of how much we show up, what actually feels good for us. And honestly, I think it just changes all of the time. I am not a robot, and I don't have a huge team behind me. I think if you can get to the place of having lots of things scheduled to go out and have a team looking after things, and it all can look super consistent, then that's wonderful. That is definitely a strategy, and go for it. The way I run my business is relationally. I build relationships with people, and people tend to work with me for a long time because we have a sense of connection and intimacy. They come back time and time again. I get enormous amounts of referrals, which I think is a strategy that is very overlooked in the online marketing world. Be good at what you do, and people will talk about what you do. Having said that, I do try to show up as much as I have the capacity for on email and social media. I do enjoy creating content and putting it out there. But I don't let the algorithm run my life. And I also don't let the algorithm decide how successful I get to be. I think there's so many of us subscribing to these rules, and that's great. If you're somebody who wants to show up all the time and you love it, that's amazing. I don't show up on social media at the weekend. I'm with my partner, I'm living my life. And the majority of my life is happening outside of my business and my content, because that's what I care about the most, is my actual life. So I think there's a balance that you can have where you can have structure. And I know for myself, structure and stability and systems and strategy has been something that my nervous system has found very, very, very hard to cope with in the past. The more stabilized I become in my nervous system, the more I am able to implement those things so that things can be running without me having to be there. And you can also have okay, when am I feeling lit up? When am I excited to show up? Because this idea that we are going to give 100% every single day is just ludicrous. Yeah. Maybe showing up, maybe we just have to change what showing up means. Maybe it's more than enough on one day to be your version of showing up is like spending a lot of time on the yoga mat or walking in nature, journaling. Another day you might do a live video, a podcast interview, and schedule 3 emails, but we're not going to be the same every single day. So I try and honor my body as much as possible, and also lean into systems and structure as much as I possibly can. But every time I gather evidence that my business is working, everything works out for me all the time. The algorithm loves me, there's more than enough money in clients. Like, these are the beliefs that I live by. And it's very tempting sometimes to think, oh my God, if I'm like, how can I be successful if I don't have 10,000 followers on Instagram, or if I don't have a reel that's gone viral, or, however many. I hear so many people saying to me, God, if people knew that I only had 300 subscribers on my email list, but I made 50 grand last month. Yeah, like, because a lot of the things that we've been taught are what I call bro marketing. It's this idea of follow the formula, hit the goal, do the steps, no matter what, say the right thing. I'm like, no, that didn't work for me. I made the funnels, I followed the rules, I did the things that I was told to do, even though my nervous system was screaming like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. And then when I shifted to start to listen more deeply to my own inner wisdom and actually connect with humans and really understand my own magic and my gifts, my message, well, then people connect. And when people connect, people want to be in your energy, they want to work with you. You can have the perfect funnel, but if you don't have resonance in your nervous system, and for me now, the future of business, especially our business, where it's been through a big reckoning in the last couple of years, people have been through a lot, and we are not putting up with the bullshit anymore. We're not gonna give all of our money to these bro marketing coaches who don't care about us. They don't care about us. We're just a number. We want to work with people who we actually connect with and have that level of intimacy with, because that's when we can actually shift things,
Absolutely. And as a client, we want to do that as well. Like, we want to work with coaches who are like that. But then as a coach ourselves, we also want to work with people that we have that connection with, because that connection helps create an even safer space. And when you've got a safe space with someone, they're going to open up more, so you can help them even more. And that's probably why you get so many repeat clients. Like, I've had multiple clients that have come back to me again and again, because we have that connection, we have that space, we have that safe environment where you can uncover even more and heal even more.
Oh my goodness, I couldn't agree more. When we create a safe environment for people to do the work that they want to do, and we believe in them and we show up for them, that's the magic. And it's not talked about enough. When people are getting caught up in posting at the right times on social media, getting the funnel, doing the Facebook ads, doing all of this, that, and the other, a lot of the time they're completely missing, well, how are you holding your clients? How are you actually interacting with people? How are you making people feel? Like, how are you feeling in your own system? It's, as far as I'm concerned, it's like the future of business is nervous system led. When we can actually feel safe with one another and connected, amazing things can happen.
Absolutely. And especially because of the uncertainty and the fear over the last 2 years as well. Like, we're so much more vulnerable and uncomfortable and scared than we used to be 2 years ago. And we need people who are going to understand and, as I said, like, look after us and support us and help us feel safe in that way. There's also, you touched on a moment ago, like the beliefs of needing to show up in a certain way, needing to be visible in a certain way, needing to worry about the algorithm. There's also this common belief that's been instilled in pretty much all of us throughout our lives, that the harder we work, the more we receive, and the more we deserve to receive. Yet this is a belief that you don't subscribe to, and you are actively proving that it isn't the case. So how can we change that belief in ourselves so that we don't feel like we have to work hard to receive our desires?
Oh my God, yeah, love it. So by hard work, what I want to kind of preface this with is, hard, like I work hard. I show up for my people. I put some effort into things that I do. Of course I do. But what I don't do is push myself way out of my window of tolerance. What I don't do is ignore my body. What I don't do is constantly overgive. What I don't do is push my boundaries. So actually, what a lot of the kind of receiving model that most of us, especially people socialized as women, that there are so many rules about how we get to receive. We can receive if we've been a good girl. We can receive if we've completely ignored our own needs. We can receive if we've given a lot first. And what I am shifting into, and what a lot of my clients are shifting into, is a different model of receiving, which is a model of a relaxed and open nervous system. It's a model of I give what I give, and then I sit back and I receive. And the way that we move those models is through the body. So if our system feels comfortable with, like, okay, I receive when I hustle, like I'm okay when I am overworking. What we have to do is gently show our system through nervous system regulation work. It's safe to slow down. It's safe to come out of that hyper vigilant survival state. It's safe to offer what we offer and trust, again, like coming back to that word, that people will feel the offering and come through. So it doesn't happen overnight, does not happen overnight. And it's interesting when you talk about at the belief level, because what I would probably say is the nervous system level, and the beliefs shift with that. So when our nervous system feels safe and relaxed and calm and open and all of those good things, and we are building evidence of receiving coming through. I don't know whether you've ever had it where it's like you take a holiday and you think maybe your business is going to fall apart if you take this break, and then you come back and there's like 3 people in your inbox wanting to work with you, gathering that evidence all the time, like, yes, this works. I can do this. I can slow down. I can soften. I'm okay. And the more we build that capacity for presence, the more we build the capacity for pleasure, the more we actually we experience life through our felt senses. We experience the world. We experience wealth, success, joy, happiness, fulfillment. These are not things that we experience in our brains. These are things that we experience, like we feel. Like I'm moving back in my chair as I'm talking about these things, because I feel safe to allow my heart to be open. When we're self-protected, we are scrunched up like this. So many of us, like on our laptops, like, what happens when we allow our body to actually start soaking up, like, oh, this is what abundance feels like. This is what expansion feels like. This is what, huge deep breath comes naturally, like, okay, can I soak in that? Can I allow my entire system to believe, to feel and believe that it's more than possible to receive from this model, and not just the model of hustling and doing and overgiving. But it takes us creating the belief in our bodies first, because then it's like, I often say to myself, like, I create it in my body first. It's alive in my body first, and then it comes into the physical realm, and when it does, my system's just like, oh, cool, like I've been expecting you. That's great, So I hope that explains that, because there's so many conditions on receiving, and it's worked up to a point, but this is a new era of women running businesses and being entrepreneurs and leading, and we get to choose, like, I'm not interested in burnout. I'm not interested in hustle. I'm not interested in any of that. I'm interested in enjoying this phenomenal life.
Yeah.
No matter what is going on in my business.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so many of us, when we start our businesses, or even like a few years into our businesses, our business becomes our life, and we forget that actually our business is just supposed to be there to support us in living our lives in the way that we want. And we spend so much time building the business that we forget to actually live.
Yeah. And I often think about it as a relationship. You know, it's a relationship that I have with my business. It's a relationship that I have with money. And how, you know, if I'm constantly giving and never allowing my business to nourish me, I wouldn't want to do that in my romantic relationship. I wouldn't want to do that in my friendships. Why would I do that in my business?
Mhm.
You know, but so many of us feel so much more comfortable giving, and receiving is really, really challenging, especially for women. And there's so much deep conditioning that you've got to earn it, you've got to work for it. Um, but what I'm saying is, it's actually our birthright to receive. It's actually, you know, when we're born, we effortlessly receive the nourishment from our caregivers and food and sustenance. You know, like we open ourselves to that. But at some point along the way, whether it's, you know, it's dangerous to take up space and receive and be seen, we're punished for it in some way, we are made fun of in some way, whatever it might be, we learn, okay, in order to stay safe in this environment, I have to behave like this, be like this. And then we come into our businesses and we're taking the same conditioning with us, whereas we actually get to write new rules. We get to say, oh, I'm more than enough, exactly the way I am. I'm more than worthy, you know? And that, on the body level first, will translate up into thoughts and beliefs.
Yeah, and it's so much more empowering when we do that, when we say, do you know what, I'm not available for these beliefs anymore, I'm not available for these feelings anymore, that's not how I want to feel in my body, and I'm going to change that.
Yeah, making that decision, having that desire, for sure.
Yeah. Are there any daily practices or rituals that you do to help you shift into this kind of receiving energy?
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's another practice, I will say, receiving in general. There are super small things that I really love to recommend to people that I do daily. One of which is celebrating absolutely everything on the regular. And if you can be witnessed in your celebrations, even better, because celebrations are going to support your survival self to be like, oh, okay, like it's not all doom and gloom. Maybe things are okay. So I have a daily celebration practice, which I do in my journal, and I also do it with my coach. And I do it with all of my clients as well. As the first thing we do on all of our calls is celebrate. And it's everything and anything. It's from the clients and the money and all of those things to, like, I handled this situation differently, or I took myself for a really long bath, or whatever it might be. And then I have like quite an extensive journaling practice that I do, that I offer to my clients as well. I have a really, I'm obsessed with journaling. I always have been, and I've honed it down to 10 questions now, and they kind of follow the rhythm of the work that I do with clients as well, in terms of tapping into our desires and seeing what lives there, and being with whatever is there, moving through it. So we're not ignoring the parts of us that are like, oh, that desire sounds great, but I'm not sure about that. It's a bit scary. I don't think we should do that. So being with those parts. And then there's always movement. So sometimes it's yoga, sometimes it's a walk. What I find, I'm in a launch right now, and what I find is so essential when I'm moving through big growth edges is embodiment practice, where I'm allowing my body to feel the vision, the desires that I have. Notice what that feels like. Notice if any parts come up that contract around that. Moving with those parts, letting them move through the body. Opening up to pleasure and expansion and possibilities that might come, and then allowing peace and rest to come in as well. So it can change every day, but our bodies hold so much. And, you know, whether it's like a shoulder pain or a stomach thing or whatever it might be, it's trying to say something. And when we can turn towards that and be with it and move it through, oh my goodness, it creates so much space to receive. So I'd say journaling, celebrations, embodiment practice are my daily rituals.
I love those. I love those. And they're so, like, even the celebration one, I think that's one that so many people overlook. We forget to celebrate ourselves all the time. And I've started doing it where, like, even if I make a decent meal, I'm just like, oh my God, that was so good. I did such a good job at cooking the dinner. Or I made my bed this morning, I made my bed for the first time this week. And I was like, well done. You made your bed. I'm so proud of you. And those little things, like getting used to being in that energy of, you're doing a great job, because we spend so much time not in that energy and in, you're not doing enough, or I don't feel good today, or this is going wrong, or I'm not working hard enough. So consciously choosing to put yourself in a different state is really valuable for you and your body.
It's so powerful, and I cannot tell you how much resistance I've faced from people with the celebration practice. I once had somebody say to me, it feels a bit fake to be manufacturing things to celebrate and like changing how I feel, almost like a spiritual bypassy kind of thing. And I thought it was really interesting, because when we're learning to work with our nervous systems or our emotions or whatever you want to call it, being able to shift your state from feeling like things aren't going very well into, oh, I'm actually doing a really good job and I feel light and I feel energized and I'm going to go do this thing now. Like, that's a superpower. How incredible to be able to do that. And I would never advocate for not being with the parts that are in grief or sadness or fear, or of course 100% turn towards them, be with them, listen to them, love them. But we don't want them running our businesses.
No.
We don't want small, like, inner children running our businesses. We don't want fear running our businesses. We want to be able to bring in the part that, the CEO, the leader who says, oh, I've got this, everything's going well, everything's working out, everything I'm doing is great, it's all happening, it's done.
Yeah, it's such a nice place to work from. So important. And what about the times though when we do feel like nothing is working? So when the bank balance is going down but the money doesn't seem to be coming in, how can we stay in this relaxed state of receiving, or in this like embodied, like empowered state? How can we stay in that without letting the panic and the fear convince us that we need to perhaps go back into hustle mode?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So there are days where I will spend the entire day working with what is present. Because like you said previously, if you try and sit down and force yourself to do the thing, it's going to be really hard work. It's going to take a huge amount of energy, and you're probably not going to be very happy with what you've done. It's not going to feel great. You're like kind of grinding your gears, So if I need to spend the entire day, and it doesn't take the entire day these days, but occasionally it does, I need to spend the entire day on the beach, moving my body, using my practices, using my tools, connecting with my coach, connecting with colleagues, my partner, people who I know are supportive and are safe people, in order to get myself into the space of CEO who makes brilliant decisions for my business. I think that's time very well spent. Yeah. Because when I'm in that state of regulation and CEO mindset and all of those pieces, that's when I can see, okay, I can step back and I can make rational, calm decisions. When I am firefighting and trying to move from the state of survival, that's when we see a lot of rushed, desperate kind of marketing. We're rushing people into making decisions. I don't know whether you've ever noticed, but when we rush people and have that kind of like survival, adrenaline fueled marketing, the clients who come in are often in that state as well. And we've created for ourselves quite a difficult situation to then navigate. I know it can feel really, really challenging when the bank balance isn't the way that I want it to be. However, when we are in that connected, ventral, regulated space, that's when our beliefs are saying, well, of course the money will appear. It's always appeared in the past. My needs have always been met in the past. Like, of course, this will all work out. As opposed to, oh my God, fight, flight, everything's falling apart. Oh my God, I've got to rush. We don't tend to make very good decisions when we're in that space. So body first, nervous system first, the actions that you will take when you have brought yourself into that space are going to be radically different to the survival actions that you take. And I recognize that that can be really alien and challenging. So it's not going to happen overnight. I know I've said that multiple times, but we can't expect ourselves to go, if we are in a nervous system state where we're constantly stuck on survival, which is where I was for most of my life, coming into that ventral connected space, we're not just going to decide and be there 100% of the time. Of course we're not. We're just, can we dip into it? Can we gently and slowly start to build our capacity to be in that space until eventually we're running our entire businesses and lives from this space? Because let me tell you that from that space, you have boundaries, you have an excellent self-care, phenomenal communication, your pricing structure feels nourishing, the offers you're putting out feel really good. You know, your communication, the way you connect with people feels completely different. So they're more likely to say yes. It shifts everything rather than making knee-jerk survival decisions, which can feel really good at the time and they can bring us some sense of achievement and some rewards. But do we want to be stuck there all the time for the rest of our business life? No.
No, absolutely not. And I recognize that in myself. There's been so many times where I've been in that survival state and I've been like, okay, I'm going to take this action because I need to be doing something, and I've got to be making progress, or I've got to be doing something, and I'll do it. And then when my body comes out of that state, I then realize that's not what I want to be doing. It doesn't feel good to me. It never felt good to me. That's not part of what I feel like I want my business to look like. And now I need to catch myself in those moments when I'm about to do those things and be like, okay, actually, let's just do something for the body instead.
Body first. Yeah, let the body lead the way. It will probably take you to some pretty surprising places.
I think that's going to be my new mantra. Let the body lead the way. I love it. I just need to move my feet because I've got pins and needles.
Yeah, let the body lead.
That on the puffy, I'm like, oh, it's going to make loads of noise. Okay, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about confidence and your journey towards building confidence. So, what does confidence mean to you, and have you always been confident in yourself?
Yeah, it's such an interesting word. It's quite a loaded word, isn't it? Confidence. Yeah. Initially, when I hear the word confidence, I think fake it till you make it. You know, I think wear a mask, let people, you know, show that you're confident. Doesn't matter if you really are. So what I tend to use, whether that's right or wrong, I don't know whether that is what confidence is, but that's what comes to my mind. And so for me, I've kind of redefined a little bit what confidence means away from that. And for me, it's self-trust. And people will have always thought that I was confident in the past, but I was wearing a mask. And it's exhausting wearing masks. Oh my goodness. Self-trust, 0. Mask of confidence, 100%. You know, that's what had me being able to walk into the Elle magazine offices and, you know, but in the inside, I feel like horrendous. But it looks good, you know, like seems like an impressive thing to do. The self-trust piece has come times a million. Like I was building it already, but it's come times a million since I got completely 100% clean and sober. And I just want to be really, really clear on this as well. My habits were maybe like when I gave up, maybe once a month, I would smoke a spliff, and maybe once a week or once a fortnight have 1 or 2 glasses of red wine. So pretty minimal by a lot of people's standards. No binge drinking at all. But over those years, like, I mean, obviously 10 years previously, it was very different to that. So it was very slow change. But I didn't make that decision to quit everything from a place of, oh my God, my life is a complete mess. I just really want to open that up for people, because I think there's still so many misconceptions about sobriety and substance use that yeah, my life's cool. Like, I don't have a problem. It's no big deal. And I didn't have a problem on paper, but I remember doing an exercise where I think it's step 4 of AA or something, like the 12-step thing. Draw a line in one direction and a line in another direction. One is if you continue with your habits, and the other is if they're no longer in your life. They were so vastly different. I couldn't believe it. This was maybe 5 years ago. The life where I continued to have the occasional drink and the occasional spliff and, like binge eat toast or whatever, biscuits, whatever it was that I was using. And the life where they were no longer a part of it, like, oh my goodness, one was full of health and joy and connection, and one was like, oh, just a bit. And the reason that I was able to stop using those coping strategies, which were just that, they were just coping strategies, they worked for a time until they stopped working. And the reason that I was able to say goodbye to all of those coping strategies is because I've created safety in my nervous system. That's how powerful it is. Because when I'm able to soothe those parts and listen to those parts without having to turn to whatever it is that I was turning to, when I have resources, real, true resources, I no longer need those strategies. So the trust and the confidence that has come, I 100% have my own back. I never abandoned myself. I'm not going to go and shut down that uncomfortable emotion with some wine. It's just not going to happen. So to have that level of having my own back, like, most parts of me are like, okay, I think we're safe with Tamsin. Okay, we're cool. Like, she's in the driver's seat. And that's when, oh my goodness, it's like, okay, I can raise my prices. I can handle it. I can handle it. So that's been, yeah, that's the journey of self-trust and confidence for me. It's like, it feels genuine and true, and there isn't a mask anymore.
Oh, I love that. What a beautiful space to kind of get to. And I feel like I kind of move in and out of it still. Like, I would say that I'm never 100% in it all the time, and I still feel like it is a practice. Like, I feel like confidence is a practice, self-trust is a practice. But I know that when I'm in those states, it feels so much better than when I'm not.
Yeah.
So much better. On the topic of sobriety, did you face any challenges? Because, as you said, like, it wasn't like you were drinking every weekend. It wasn't like you were taking loads of drugs all the time. Like, it was occasional. Did you still find it challenging in the way that you would kind of expect somebody who does drink every week would?
The challenge was the 15 years before the decision was made. Once the decision has been made, it's been phenomenal. It's been so easy. My business has blown up. It's been incredible. The 15 years before then, really, 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 really hard and challenging, and having to really understand that addiction is in my lineage big time. And addiction is responsible for most, if not all, of the traumas that I've experienced in my life. So when I started to put the pieces together, it's slowly, really, really, really slowly, it became clearer and clearer and clearer to me that this was not some sort of fringe issue, So that's the big thing for me, is it's in my lineage. And I've been in denial about that for a very long time. I know many others are. It's not an easy thing to come to terms with at all. But yeah, it was messy and rocky and difficult. And I probably stopped drinking for a year and just started smoking loads of pot, and then, would stop smoking pot and start having red wine, and it's all terribly socially acceptable. It was all very like fine. But yeah, it was a lot of therapy and a lot of work. I don't want to diminish the work that it took to. Once I made the decision, it's been no big deal at all. But it's not, like I say, we're using those coping strategies for a reason. If we're using them as I was using them as a coping strategy. I was never, ever, 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 ever relaxed around alcohol. I was never relaxed around drugs. I was never relaxed around food. I was never relaxed. Full stop, basically. So, but I'm sure there are people out there who just have a glass of wine and it's not a big deal. But generally speaking, we have some pretty weird relationships with substances in our culture. It's very, very, very socially acceptable to use alcohol to change your mood.
Yeah.
Whereas since I've stopped doing that, life's gotten a lot better. So it's a very uncomfortable conversation. Very, very, very uncomfortable. And if I talk about it amongst friends or other people, like, I feel like it's not great, because people just want to have a couple of glasses of wine and relax.
Yeah.
But slowly, if it feels like something that could be interesting, like, I wonder what, for me, it was like the space that opened up in my life, the clarity that opened up. It's just no longer having to think about, am I going to have a drink? Have I had enough of a drink? Should I have another one? Like, how much is that person drinking? Like, I can't tell you. I have now finally accepted that my partner has 2 beers on a Friday, and it took 2 years for me to accept that she wasn't going to get drunk. She wasn't going to do anything weird. She wasn't going to act unpredictably. She is a moderate drinker. They actually do exist.
I had no idea.
Yeah, it's when you come from environments where alcohol is abused and drugs are abused and what have you, it's pretty hard to have a neutral relationship with those substances.
Yeah. And again, I suppose being in those environments where the substances are being abused, it then creates unsafety again in your body, because you don't know how somebody else is going to react when they've had a few drinks. Like, I've dealt with that before, where it's like, oh, am I going to be awake all night tonight, or am I going to have to deal with this, or am I going to have to deal with that? And it's not a safe environment to be in.
That is exactly it. Yeah. And when we are abandoning ourselves on the regular and not able to be with our own uncomfortable emotions, how can we then sit with other people in their pain or their uncomfortable emotions without having to escape? We live in a culture that likes to escape discomfort. But unfortunately, it also means that we are not available for pleasure. We're not available for ease. We're not available for those other things, because we have to be able to sit with the discomfort without constantly escaping. And when we can cultivate that inner safety within ourselves, that inner trust, that confidence, oh my goodness, we no longer need any of those things. We don't have to escape. We can be with ourselves fully.
Yeah. And what a beautiful place that would be. Okay, last question before we go. What would you say is either your number 1 practice or your top 3 practices for feeling confident to be seen and to receive?
Oh, celebrations.
Yeah.
It's got to be transformative.
Mm-hmm.
To shift from I can't do this, I can't have this, it's not working, into, there's a practice that I really like, actually, to kind of like, because we can it's a bit like gratitude, like we can write down things we're grateful for or whatever, but if we're not feeling it, it's kind of pointless.
Yeah.
So there's an acronym and a practice called sifting.
Okay.
So you might notice it's particularly powerful, I think, when we're speaking and when we're being witnessed, but it can work when we're writing on our journals and celebrating that way. What we really want to be doing when we're sifting, it stands for sensation, image, feeling, and thought. And what we tend to do is sift negative emotions and scenarios all the time. We will replay the stuff that we didn't think went the way we wanted it to, time and time again. We will replay traumatic memories over and over and over again. Like, that is, like, our brains are like, just remember, like, stuff can go wrong. Stay vigilant. So when we start to consciously sift ventral or good, positive, whatever you want to call it, present, beautiful, connected, intimate, fabulous moments, it's almost like we're marinating our systems in like safety and goodness. So with celebrations, we can do celebrations for what's happened, but we can also do future celebrations. So I might just start like sifting right now. oh my God, I sold out my program. It's so incredible. I just had my highest ever cash month, you know, like, okay, sensations. Oh, I feel tingly. I feel really tingly. I'm sitting up taller. I'm smiling. Oh, yeah, there's an energy running there. Images. Oh my goodness, I've checked my bank account. It's like, whoa, I've never seen that much money in my bank account. Or I see myself like jumping up and giving my partner a big hug to celebrate. How do I feel? I feel light. I feel expansive. I feel excited. I feel whatever it might be. And what thoughts am I having? Oh my God, I did it. Wow, how incredible. Oh my God, this is going to be so amazing. This is it. We're doing it. Wow. You know, so we're using all of those different parts of us, sensations, image, feelings, and thoughts, to future celebrate, but we can also allow ourselves to just really marinate, like, you know, what's a memory, could be recent, could be far in the past. We can celebrate stuff that happened 20 years ago. Sometimes I ask my clients to celebrate their like A-level results that they never allowed themselves to celebrate. High achievers do this a lot. We can take ourselves there right now and allow ourselves to marinate in those feelings, and we'll notice how different we feel from doing that practice. So if we did a little bit of sifting of something ventral and gorgeous every single day to allow our systems to get used to that feeling, like that feeling can be available, maybe not all the time, definitely not all the time, but the majority of the time. So that's the practice for me.
Oh, I love that, because I'll do the like this kind of talking out loud, like, oh my God, I did it, like I'm so proud of myself, I achieved this. But the whole adding in the sensations and those kind of like feelings and the thoughts and bringing it all together is such a wonderful practice, and I'm so excited to start incorporating that into my day. I'm just going to write it on my phone like a big note, like sift now, set a reminder every day.
Yes, do it. Oh my God, let me know what happens.
Yeah, I do. I have like daily affirmations that come up on my phone at multiple times throughout the day, and I'm going to add this as like a practice to come up so that I can get involved in that. So I love it.
Yeah. For some people it might be like playing with an animal or watching a sunset. You know, it can be anything you want, but yeah, we get to really show ourselves that we can shift how we feel really quite quickly. Like a lot of the practices that I share are a couple of minutes, if that, and we just get to, if we can move ourselves one little notch from survival into like less survival into you know, ventral and protect and present. Oh my God, how incredible. We become the active operators of our own systems. We become the active operators of our own lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's two really common barriers that people have, aren't there? It's the I don't have time to do anything about it, and the oh, what was I going to say? The I can't, it feels too far away for me to go from survival to feeling amazing. And we think we have to do that massive jump, but we don't. We just have to move from feeling like a 3 to feeling like a 4, rather than trying to go from like a 3 to a 10.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
really powerful. Yeah, one tiny step at a time.
Absolutely. Well, that was amazing. Thank you so much. I've absolutely loved this conversation. I can't wait to go back and edit it all and listen to it all over again.
Yay, me
So much
too.
goodness in here. Before we go, where can people find you online?
So I am at Tamsin Crimmens on Instagram, and my website is tamsincrimmens.co.uk as well. They're both quite strange names, so I'll spell them. Tamsin, Tamsin, and Crimmens, Crimmens. I hang out on Instagram mainly. I don't really scatter myself amongst many other places. So yeah, come and watch my stories there. That's where I like to hang out.
Yes, amazing. I do. I love your Instagram content. Every time you put a post out, I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly what I wanted to read today.
Thank you.
Amazing. Well, thank you for being here, and I'll see you guys in the next one.